welcome back to Atypical Talk. This is a podcast where we have conversations that illuminate the intersection of faith, culture, and the common spaces of our humanity. I'm Abby.
I'm Joel.
I'm Brooke.
Yep.
Yeah.
We have Brooke with us. She is our children's pastor here at the church. She's been on a few episodes so far. So our opening question we have is, how have you used AI and what are your thoughts on it?
What's AI? What is happening?
Yeah. Artificial intelligence.
Okay. Oh, yeah. That old chestnut.
Yeah.
I have used it very sparingly. I actually feel like I should use it more than I do. I feel like one time in sermon prep, I was doing some research and I knew I had heard something about the Roman Empire. If you don't know, the Roman Empire is my Roman Empire. And I remember wondering something about the rights of women in the Roman Empire. And I had heard something about how their witness in a court of law was not valid. And I couldn't substantiate it. But I'm like, oh, ask ChatGPT. And it came up with like 2 pages about women's rights in the Roman Empire in the first century. And it was really helpful. It saved me a lot of time. Did that. And then I feel like every time I Google something right now, Google's AI gives you like an article at the very top before you even get to links. And I'm using that all the time. But I find AI is just getting more baked in to just our use of the internet. So yeah, it's been a helpful tool for me personally. Yeah. A couple times. I need to use it more.
And it's like in Gmail, every time you open an email, it's like, do you want to summarize this? Yeah. Allison sent me an email last week that was 1 sentence. And it was like, would you like me to summarize this? No, I'm good.
Well, it's interesting because even my iMessage, my text messages, I have them connected to my work laptop. And if I get a text, it'll give me like a summary of the text message before I even open it up in the right-hand corner of my screen. And I'm like, oh, sometimes that's really cool. And other times it's like, she only said yup. And so the summary is affirmative. What about you, Brooke?
I don't have a lot of experience with AI. Snapchat filters.
Yeah.
Okay. How are those AI? I don't know about these things.
No, not all the filters, but they have like a couple of AI filters now where it could be like, you can take a picture of yourself and it's like you in the 60s. And then it just comes up with like an AI generated photo.
But you haven't integrated it with your work at all?
No.
Okay, not at all. Not yet.
Not yet.
What about you, Abby?
So I haven't used it a whole lot, especially for work, but just this week I was like, I'm going to give it a try for the podcast. So all the article summaries today are AI.
Whoa.
So yeah, I use a website called TLDR This.
Okay.
And you just put in an article and it summarizes the article and you can ask it questions about specific things in the article and it'll answer it. And it was kind of cool to kind of try using that. And so if the article summaries seem a little off today,
we can blame it.
Yeah, blame it on AI.
Blame it on our robot overlords.
Yes, exactly.
They did it. That's amazing. Yeah. I was just thinking too, because you always, I don't know if we've ever talked about this, and it's dangerous to do on mic right now, but you always, for our sermon podcasts at Bridgeway, you always do like a 3 or 4 sentence summary of the sermon. And I'm always fascinated with what Abby thought the sermon was about, because she usually makes it much catchier than what I say. And so I was looking at that. I'm like, I wonder if you could just feed the sermon into AI and see how they summarize the sermon in a paragraph.
Yeah.
I might have to try that next week. Yeah.
You do a great job. It's kind of funny.
Not that it takes me a whole lot of time to write 4 sentences, but yeah, I'll have to try that next time. But our first article today, it is about AI. It's a BBC News article titled "DeepSeek Moved Me to Tears: How Young Chinese Find Therapy in AI." In China, young people are increasingly turning to the AI chatbot DeepSeek for emotional support and therapy. The app has struck a chord with users like Holly, who find its responses more helpful and comforting than professional counseling services. DeepSeek's ability to empathize and offer new perspectives has moved some users to tears, with one woman saying, "It has introduced new perspectives that have freed me." The demand for mental health support in China is growing, but services remain stigmatized and expensive, leading many to seek solace in AI chatbots like DeepSeek. However, DeepSeek's success has also raised concerns. Due to China's tight control over technology and data, there's fears that the government could access the personal information of DeepSeek's foreign users. The app also faces restrictions in several jurisdictions, with South Korea, Taiwan, Australia, and Italy taking steps to limit or ban its use. In China itself, DeepSeek is subject to censorship, with politically sensitive topics off limits for the chatbot. Despite these issues, many young Chinese users remain enthusiastic about DeepSeek, praising its ability to converse like a friend or deep thinker and provide inspiration and guidance. Experts caution, however, that people with serious mental health conditions should not rely solely on AI chatbots and should seek professional help instead. So what do you guys think about using a AI chatbot for therapy?
I feel like I have a lot of thoughts.
Yeah.
So obviously for people who might not have access, whether it be financially or within their healthcare that is provided, if they don't have access to a therapist, like maybe this is a great alternative for them. Or maybe they've tried other ways before, but going in person gives them anxiety. Maybe this could be a way for them to get help. But the article talked about I think there was maybe a professor that said something about pending the severity of your mental health needs, seeing someone in person, is never going to replace what a robot or AI could respond to you. And I also don't think like it is going to be able to replace a person. Like there's just so much lost in the lack of face-to-face connection.
Yeah.
So.
I see both sides of the coin and think about people that are unable to get out and unable to afford services that are expensive. I see this being a decent stopgap, I would hope. But I just think it's interesting, even how AI summarized the article. They talked about that it doesn't replace, or it feels like you're conversing with a friend or a deep thinker. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what's really missing, is that people just don't have that presence in their life. So it's not a one-for-one substitute. In the same way that we post our services online and we have an online chat host for people, like this last week we had snow on Sunday morning and people traveling or people with sick kids and not unable to be there. Like, it's a helpful tool, but it's just not a substitute. It's just not the same. And I fear that the less interaction we have where we can be vulnerable with another human being, looking them in the eyes, sitting across the table from them, the more anxiety that just brings to us when we do have to do it. And then we just move away from having real, meaningful, vulnerable conversations with other humans. Because there is something that's costly in having a vulnerable conversation with somebody. It drains you in some regard. And if we don't build that muscle up, then we're going to run from it more and more and more. And I fear that people will just not have those friends and those deep thinkers in their life that they can be real and vulnerable with. And so they'll just think that, well, this will be my trade-off. And it just won't do the same. Another fear that I have is, there's sort of this disclaimer, like, well, if you have severe mental health issues, don't use this. Well, in my experience, people that are suffering with mental illness don't really know how to explain what's going on. They don't know what's severe, what's normal stress, what's depression, what's just bouts of anxiety or anxiety attacks. And so, like, leaving it up to those people, I think could lead to some pretty devastating results. So, I think that it can maybe be a stopgap in the moment, but there will never be a substitute for real life, flesh and blood, eye contact, the empathy and the energy you can feel in a room sitting across a table with another human being. It's so foundational to the way that we were created and wired that when God wanted to enter into the human story through his son, he didn't do it just with words from heaven or like thunderclaps of like, here's the Bible kind of thing. I mean, he sent himself in human form to empathize, to stand with humanity in solidarity in our good times and in our suffering, all the way to death, and experience death the way that we experience the extinguishing of our life. And I think that speaks so much to us. I mean, that's some of us why we're Christ followers, is because we connect with the person of Jesus being God and man and human. And I think there's something inside of us that it'll be a scratch that'll never get itched until we have those deep friendships and those deep thinking conversations and the real vulnerability with another human being. There's healing and, dare I say, like salvation that can only come through relationships. And it might feel as you're typing in questions on DeepSeek or on ChatGPT like they're talking right back to you. But in the back of your mind, you know, it's just code. It's not somebody with a story, not somebody that can say, yeah, me too, I've been there, or this is what I learned, and this is the path that I've been down, and this is the pit that I've been in. We know that. And so I just think that it is a dangerous thing to treat this as a substitute, a stopgap at best. But I can also just give a little plug for a resource that we have at our church that we started a few years back called Mental Matters. If you go to bridgewaykokomo.com /mental matters, Abby will put this in the show notes. We have a list of mental health professionals that we have vetted and have a relationship with here in Kokomo. We also have a list of, or we have a contact for mental health coaches through Mental Health or Mental Matters that are some of our volunteers that have been trained to just be mental health triage and to help listen and meet you where you are, and it's completely free. And so, man, don't pass on opportunities to talk to somebody and to destigmatize mental illness, and if at all possible, talk to another person. And I think that's really where healing really begins, is not just from getting information transmitted to you, but it's through relationship and that trust that can happen in a vulnerable relationship. Yeah.
Well, I just looked up this article, but I believe it's an ongoing lawsuit still with the person who created the site Character AI, which I've never messed around with it, but from my understanding, it's a place where you go and you can like put in a random movie or TV show character, and like it uses the voice to talk back to you and stuff of those characters. And there was a kid last year who was talking to this character and had basically become best friends with this character and talked about how he wanted to take his life, and that AI like encouraged him to.
Oh my gosh.
And so there's this lawsuit going on. So, you know, the AI bot, like, it didn't understand what he was talking about and stuff, and
he was playing the character.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's dangers like that with using AI is your therapist too. I'm hoping, I mean, it's been a year since that happened, so I'm hoping that things have improved, but still, it's not a human that's going to understand, you know, what you're going through. But you mentioned Mental Matters, but what are some other things that you would suggest to people who don't have like the money or the ability to get a therapist right now?
I think beyond using those kind of free resources in your community, I think that, again, I'll just be a cheerleader for the local church, but I think that when the local church is working and when it's healthy, it should be an empathetic, safe landing place for you no matter what's going on. People that can listen to you, you can bend their ear, and they will welcome you in to bring you shelter from the storm. And I think finding a group of peers inside of a church, whether that be a type of small group, what we call table groups, if it's just finding a safe place for an hour and 15 minutes on Sunday morning where you can be yourself and you can experience God's love and experience it through other people and the warmth of other people, I think that matters. And it could be an input into your life that could maybe shout down the negative outputs that you're experiencing. So again, I wouldn't say that every church is safe in this, but I would try to find a church that takes mental health seriously and takes you and your full humanity seriously to care for you. And I think that they could be bringing you healing in the right path. Again, coming back to the article, they talked about how people need friends and they need people that are doing deep thinking and vulnerability, being exposed in a healthy way. And I think, man, when the church gets it right, we are all of those things for people. And that's should be one of our aims.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, our second topic today is a religion news article titled, "He's a Young Millennial Catholic Priest. Of course he's a social media influencer." Father David Michael Moses is a 31-year-old Catholic priest who has gained a large social media following, particularly on platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. With his humorous and relatable videos, he has amassed nearly 1 million followers across his accounts. Moses sees his online presence as a way to reach people who may not normally engage with the church, using humor and personal stories to draw viewers in before sharing more serious Catholic teachings and content. While some priests have struggled with the demands of maintaining a strong social media presence, Moses tries to balance his online work with his duties as a parish priest, relying on assistants to help manage the technical aspects. The article explores the emerging phenomenon of priest influencers like Moses and the challenges and opportunities they face in using digital platforms for evangelism. While some are wary of the distractions and potential pitfalls, Moses believes he's called to meet people where they are online in order to reach the lost sheep who may not otherwise encounter the church. So, after reading this, my first question is, when are you starting your influencer career?
Oh, brother. Some people probably think I already do that. Yeah, it's a weird thing, but yeah, not really my bag.
Yeah. So what did you think about this and him saying that, this is a way to minister to the lost sheep, as he put it?
I really enjoyed this article, and it felt like he had a really healthy way of viewing his position as a leader in the church, but also in social media. The article mentioned that he has a couple of people who help him to edit videos and get things uploaded, and he tries to stay far away from a lot of the comments and messages that he gets, not because he doesn't want to connect with these people, but just because he has to have a boundary for himself. And so it seemed that his view was, like I said, pretty healthy. I wrote down a little quote that was from the article, but he had said, "I would not recommend my family live in a bad neighborhood, but I do believe there should be a priest in every bad neighborhood, someone who understands the culture, speaks the language, and is able to minister to the people there." And I just thought that was really special, and he's not seemingly using his social platform to push down anyone or talk against anyone, but using his platform to lift people up and encourage and inform. And I didn't really have much negative to say about this article.
No, I mean, I don't think I have maybe negative. Maybe I'm just a little painted cynical. And that could be my own thing. I just, again, I affirm this heart because I feel like his heart is, it's what I want it to be is I want to reach people who may not normally engage with church or may walked away from faith or feel like it's irrelevant to their world and life. And, it talks about him using humor and personal stories. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's kind of what we do, right? To connect with people. So there's so much in that I am just wary towards the internet being your people that you're pastoring or reaching. Again, maybe this is me being a troglodyte and hating technology or whatever, which, or being cynical of it, but I am just so drawn, and I feel like I'm healthier when I'm thinking more locally and people right in front of me that I can actually know, and they can know me, and they see my life and my family, not from what I post in a video, but from the fruit of my life and how I walk in the world. And it feels more personal, and it feels more immediate, and it feels, to me personally, just more pastoral. I want to reach the world, but I got to do that through reaching the world that's in front of me.
Yeah.
And I fear with the rise of influencers, and we've talked about this recently on the pod as well, but it can feel like we're just throwing content out there to people that we don't know their stories, and we're telling them what to do, and it just feels very impersonal.
Yeah.
And I know that would, for me personally, just feed the worst parts of me, my ego and obsessing over numbers and views and shares. I feel like that would feed a part of me that I need to starve because I already stand up on a stage for part of my career and have a microphone that's louder than other people so they can hear me clearly. There's already things built in that are, let's just say, they can feed the ego a bit in what I do. And so I mean, I affirm his heart, and I hope that it does influence people that might have walked away from church, from Roman Catholicism, or from Jesus. I just have this little bit of like, man, but what's happening to the people in front of you? Like Jesus' call that he picks from Leviticus of love your neighbor as yourself. I think we lose something when we spend our time to our neighbor that is this like nebulous somebody someplace else in the ethers of the internet. And we might not, I'm not saying this for him, but we might not give the same energy to the neighbor right next to us, or that we work alongside, or we drop off our kids when they drop off their kids. And are we giving the same intentionality and care and thought to those people? I hope so. I just know that the more time and energy and focus I put to the audience, the platform, there has to be a trade-off at some point.
Yeah.
And I'm fearful that too many Christians, we get seduced by the numbers and the views and the shares, and we spend too much of our time there. I know maybe it's just speaking for me, but I know that I can try to just build a platform and baptize it and call it Christian. And I'm like, oh gosh, is it really? Or is that just an excuse to try to be more popular? And
Yeah.
I know this feels like I'm in a counseling session with you guys now and everybody who's listening. But that's my fear and, my trepidation towards just running towards this. So I don't know. I think go Father Moses, do your thing. And I'm sure he's already doing this, but also let's love our neighbors right in front of us, and let's be influencing our atheist, angry neighbor as well, and try to love them and show them Jesus as well.
Yeah. I think my big thing, looking at it from the point of view of the audience, is not often do you see positive Christian content. A lot of times you'll see someone say, I'm Christian, I hate this, I don't like this, and he comes in, showing love and caring for people and stuff like that. And I'll look in comments of, I don't know if I've come across him specifically or different priests on TikTok, but I've seen in comments where people will say, you actually make me want to try going to church. And so I think that is one of the positives I see, but I have a lot of the same cynical views of people like this.
Yeah. And if I would play the other side of the coin for a moment too, like people spend more time in these platforms and in these places than ever before. This is where the people are.
Yeah.
And so do you want to have a vacuum there of no genuine loving Christian presence, or do you want to bring another voice to that conversation? I get that. I just know that for me, the seduction of the ego and the seduction of the platform and the crowd and the likes and the shares and that they want to monetize all these different things, it can mess with it. It makes it a more complicated conversation, which I think ultimately has to go back to the heart in which we do things. One of the most annoying and consistent things about Jesus is that he cares more about our motivations and what's behind our actions than even our outward actions. And I think that's so challenging because we can hide a lot of our motivations and things. And to Jesus, he cares more about why we do things than maybe even the actions themselves. And we have to watch that. And I think we have to watch that, especially in the age of influencers and social media and shares and likes and all the things, even more so.
So on that topic, if you had a YouTube channel, what kind of content would you post?
Oh, this was so easy for me.
I kind of figured it would be.
I would love to have a music YouTube channel where I just get like with a couple friends and we just discuss our favorite albums, music, artists, eras. I could do 6 seasons. I could just get we could do a whole Beatles podcast. That would be so much fun. Look at me. Okay. There was a couple years ago, we were at a staff work conference in Florida, and Nico, one of our coworkers, and we were playing the music and played the Beatles, and we just couldn't stop talking about the Beatles, and everybody was making fun of us, and we didn't even know, but it's like we had our own podcast talking about the Beatles. So you can just get me going, and I would love to do that. And sometimes I have a couple YouTubers that I watch when they post about music, or there's one of my favorite rock music critics. I love everything he posts and has videos about. So in another life, I would love to do that. Maybe if I get some free time after I get kids out of diapers and through school, maybe.
Yes. What about you?
I used to think that I was going to be a makeup influencer back in the day when that was kind of up and coming during my college years.
Now, help me understand, because I feel like I've only heard about this. Like, It's just like people that will just do their makeup into the screen and show people how to do their makeup, and they're like talking while they're doing it.
It kind of started probably 11 or 12 years ago. People doing tutorials, like teaching other people through YouTube videos how to do their makeup. But it's kind of evolved over the years to like doing makeup hauls and like showing what's popular, or maybe comparing like a cheaper product to an expensive product that might be like more of a dupe for cheaper. So yeah, it's definitely evolved over the years, but it started kind of as a teaching.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you could really make it, back to our last conversation, you could really like baptize it and make it very Jesus-y, to tell them about Jesus while you're doing your makeup.
That is true.
Oh, man.
I could.
Yeah.
There's still time.
Change the game. Change the
Yeah.
Please don't do that. What about you, Abby?
I think I would just enjoy playing video games and posting that stuff. I mean, you see, that's a huge thing on
So
YouTube
if you don't know,
right now.
on YouTube, like it's called streaming. I mean, is it called
I mean,
Twitch,
some people,
or?
some people stream it on Twitch.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're watching somebody play a video game and you're hearing them talk through it. And some people are listening to this and they're like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah.
It is a huge thing
It's
on YouTube.
huge right now. Yeah. And so I'd try out new games or something like that and, see how it goes.
What would your name be?
I have no idea.
Oh, I thought you had one. I was hoping she'd be like...
I mean, my gamer tag is Lemon, so it would be something around that, but I
Okay.
have no idea. Yeah, I haven't planned that far yet.
Okay.
Do you watch videos of people playing games?
Sometimes,
Okay.
but the thing I have problems with is so many people are just so loud and over the top. I'm like, I want a relaxing channel. I want to do one where you're not screaming. And
But they're shooting at you, Abby.
Yeah.
They're shooting at you. What are you supposed
I don't
to do?
play shooting games. Yeah.
So you would do like ASMR, but it's like
Sure.
playing video games.
Gaming ASMR.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
Jump over the mushroom, Mario.
I'm sure somebody's out there doing that.
I'm sure. Yeah. It has to be out there. So our last article today is a Relevant magazine article titled Christian Nationalism Made a Mess. Here's how the church can clean it up.
Record scratch. Mood change.
For decades, American evangelism has blended faith and nationalism, treating patriotism and Christianity as one and the same. This Christian nationalism has comprised the gospel, reshaping Christian identity to prioritize American citizenship over allegiance to God's kingdom. Churches have hosted patriotic baptisms and speakers who blur the line between spiritual revival and political takeover. This is not true Christianity. It's a distortion that trades the radical, countercultural message of Jesus for political influence and power. The church must reclaim its prophetic voice and reject Christian nationalism as a theological problem, not just a political one. Pastors must preach that loyalty to Christ transcends national borders and political parties. Believers must be discipled according to Scripture, not partisan talking points. The church's role is to challenge injustice, not chase political dominance. Throughout history, the most impactful Christian movements have stood for justice without seeking to wield earthly power. Civic engagement is important, but the moment the church equates faithfulness with political control, it has lost its way. Christianity has endured not by aligning with political empires, but often in spite of them, through radical love, service to the least, and a commitment to God's kingdom that transcends earthly powers. This is the legacy the church must reclaim. So what did you think of this article and everything he's talking about here?
Amen. I'm not going to add anything to it. I mean...
Well, and podcast.
It's beautiful, right? Just like there's our little benediction for the day. I think it's a really important conversation that we were having before the 2024 presidential campaign, and we're having it now in a new administration, a new old administration, I guess, with President Trump. And it is a conversation that breaks my heart, but it also at the same time energizes me to live differently, at the same time, because I feel like I see it, I mean, I don't know, for you guys, do you guys remember ever growing up and feeling like there was a mixture of like America and a church service? Like 4th of July weekend, even Memorial Day, Veterans Day.
I definitely feel like I've heard of that happening,
But
but
you didn't grow up
I
with it?
never necessarily attended a service.
Because I
can't
grew
think
up
of
in a
anything like
church that had an American flag in it.
Yeah.
So like one side, it was an American flag. The other one was a Christian flag. And they were like level.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting theological statement in of itself. But yeah, like, and, you know, I've been to, you know, chapel services and things where we would sing God Bless America, or we'd sing the Battle Hymn of the Republic, or we would sing the national anthem right next to Amazing Grace. And I just, from an early age in trying to understand Christianity, I was influenced by some of the writings of Shane Claiborne, who just changed a lot of my thinking on this, and Rob Bell, who just really challenged my thinking of this marriage between America and the kingdom of God. And I've come to understand, like, there's a big difference between being patriotic and being nationalistic. And I used to just combine those two words. Like, I see being patriotic just loving your country and being grateful for your country, which I'm just going to say this as a disclaimer before anything else I say. I love America. I am grateful to have been born here, to raise my family here. I would not choose to be a citizen of any other nation because I just feel blessed to be here. And we've got our warts, we've got our problems. Heck yeah, we do. But I love that I'm have the privilege of being born in this country and raise a family in this country. And I think that's patriotism, being grateful for your country. Nationalism slips into more of my country is the best and everybody would be better if they were me.
Yeah.
And it's the values that I hold and think America is, I want to put those on other people because they would be better, right? If they were just like me. Now that's just nationalism. It's this hierarchy where you believe this story about your nation being the best and intrinsically better than other nations. You add Christian in front of nationalism and things get dark, in my opinion. When the story of Jesus and Christianity leaves a place of being good news to lift people up and about self-sacrificial love and more about imposing your worldview and your spirituality on people that might not have willfully chosen that, and to impose what you believe to be right on other people that would limit them in their freedom of religion, and to make America Christian instead of ask the Christians in America to act Christian.
Yeah.
And I think there's the real big twist. It's not let's make our country look Christian, but like instead, I think the call of Jesus and the call of the kingdom was no matter what's going on in our government levels and in the way that power is being distributed, let's let the Christians act like Jesus and to lead the way with this countercultural story of love and sacrifice and mercy and looking out for the outsiders. I mean, not to hit a hot button, but to hit a hot button to care for the immigrants and care about them as human beings, to protect them. This is what it looks like to act like Jesus in the middle of a nation. Yeah. And I love this article so much because it calls us to not win. It's not about being in control. It's not about having power. Jesus, in his conversation with Pilate, the night he was crucified, Jesus looked at Pilate and said, "My kingdom is not of this world. I'm not going to do things like the kingdoms of this earth." And he gave his life up. And that is what we're called to do. And the kind of way that we wield power is by giving it up and by using whatever power we have for the less fortunate, for those who are in need. That looks differently than we need to get a bunch of people to vote a certain way so that we get our country the way we want it, the way that God says that it should be, which I think is Christian nationalism. So I think this is a really challenging topic, but it's one that I get energized by because I just feel this like clarity around calling of, God has called us not to be cheerleaders of political parties or candidates, but to be referees and to call out fouls, whoever's in power, and to always be bent towards those who are suffering, those who need help, and those who can't help themselves because they don't have the wheels of power at their disposal. So, I am a patriotic American. I love this country, but I do not think that God loves America more than any other country. It's a strange thing. Jesus wasn't an American, and I think God loves America, but he doesn't love America more than he does Egypt.
Right.
or India, or any of these other places. For God so loved the world, the cosmos, everybody. And then you get to the book of Revelation, and one of the last images we get of eternity is every nation, every tongue will bow before Jesus, and everyone's invited to the table, no matter if they voted Republican or Democrat, if they lived in Indiana or California, or if they lived in Bangladesh. It doesn't matter. And so I think, to me, it really calls me to examine my loyalties, my allegiance is, I'm an American, but higher than my nationality is that I'm a follower of Jesus, and I'm a citizen of the kingdom of God, which is a kingdom that will never end, and that everyone's welcome to, no matter what the color of your skin, no matter what your zip code was. And that's something I can get excited about, and I want to encourage people to see. And I also love how this article talks about, getting involved, don't just disengage from the process, but never equate your faithfulness to Jesus with just who you punch a ballot for. It's bigger than that. It's more costly than that. Yeah. It's going to cost you to love your neighbor and to love people that drive you nuts or that you think are unlovable, and forgive people that you think don't deserve to be forgiven. But you know what? That's the kingdom of God that we're invited into.
Yeah. I think it just takes a lot of growth and just thinking outside of yourself. And so I don't necessarily look down on people who, who have that Christian nationalism mindset, because they're just thinking about themselves. They're thinking about how they were raised, the people around them, and they're not thinking about the other people that don't look like them, that don't live near them and stuff like that.
It's just a really narrow way of thinking.
Yeah.
And I think too, you hit the nail on the head about thinking outside yourself. And the older I get and the longer that I follow Jesus and the more that I serve people in the local church and I'm just living in the world, man, maturity is all about thinking about other people, thinking beyond yourself and your needs, your immediate wants and desires to what somebody else might need. What's deeper maturity than that, right? Yeah. And that's the call. And I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that I've arrived at all. None of us have. But that's the journey of maturity, is to think, when we engage politically, when we vote, when we say something about what's happening with power in our country, are we doing so from our own personal interest or for others, for our neighbors, and for the sake of those who might be harmed by something? And that's the lens that I have. I think I've said this on the podcast before, but my simple guide for voting, I am not a partisan person to where I vote straight ticket in any way, shape, or form. But I do run every vote that I make through this simple grid of which candidate has a vision for our community or country that will do the least amount of harm to the most amount of people. The least amount of harm to the most people. Because I think, there's going to be damage no matter who it is, because no one's going to be perfect, but who's going to do the least amount of harm to the most people, and especially the most vulnerable? That's what I'm trying to think about when I think about these things.
Yeah, that's great. Well, that's it for this episode of Atypical Talk. If you have any topics or questions, you can email those to atypicaltalkpod@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at atypicaltalkpod, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to get updates when new episodes go live. We hope that these conversations today have helped you think wider, love deeper, and partner with God to bring the up there down here in your everyday life. Thanks for listening.